Well, she had always received packages from Amazon, Royal Mail, what have you, living on a quiet street with OAPs as neighbours. You don't really get vans coming through though, so I always noticed when she received parcels and the like. The first signs of something being off was definitely when a young lad, lanky brown curly hair, knobbly elbows, started frequenting our road. I only noticed him a few times, but he stuck out, you know. The worst part is he was always polite to me. If only I'd known. I'd notice him linger sometimes near where she'd live. If I was passing, he'd check his phone before promptly scurrying off. At first it was irregular, him randomly appearing, but soon his visits coincided with her deliveries. That day, I was watching the telly. A nondescript transit van tumbled down our road. Interested, I looked over to see if any of the neighbours had visitors for once that weren't caretakers, or if it was something maybe I ordered. The van stopped in the middle of the road, and a man stepped out. I couldn't get a good look. She lived a few doors down, and I had my reading glasses on. The courier stepped out the van, the parcel already in his hands, and he briskly paced to her front door. He waited for her to open, which was unusual in itself, or the other delivery drivers just dump her packages by her door and ring the doorbell. He had some kind of nervous jitter about him. She opened the door, and he extended the package, eager, excited. She went to close the door, but he stuck his foot out. I didn't know what he was saying, but his apprehensive look told me he wanted her to open it. Freaking out a little, I threw my coat on and trainers and popped outside. He was still there, and it looked like she had finally given in as I saw her easily peeling the tape off the box. That's when it happened. The box sprung to life as acid shot out onto her face. Her screams threw sick to the top of my mouth. Her hands were clawing at her face. It only melted more and more as the box plummeted to the floor, releasing more acid as it went. The man couldn't control his excitement. He was almost giddy. A sadistic smile cut his face in half. I yelped and he turned over to me, still bearing his smile, his arms and legs quivering with joy. That's when I realised it was him. I took a step back and he started to laugh. She was on the floor now, her face turned inside out and her clothes bleached and bloodied. I puked, almost falling to my knees. Our neighbours looked out of their windows, some walked out to their porches. He was still standing there, smiling, his eyes glistening with tears as he regarded his spectators. But then was the worst bit. He turned back to her as she tried to crawl away and shut the door. He said something about them being the same. He grabbed her off the floor, getting his hands and knees soaked in acid. He then kissed her. It wasn't a deep kiss or anything, but it was long enough to show his passion. He then let her fall to the floor. His face now blotched and reddened. His smile had somehow expanded. I didn't realise I was screaming. He then waited around for another few seconds before climbing back into his van, laughing hysterically. Then you guys were called and you know the rest.